In the heart of Kibera, one of Africa's largest urban forests nestled at the edge of a bustling city in East Africa, a young boy named Mutua was growing up amidst shadows. Not just the shadows of tall trees, but of poverty, peer pressure, and silent wounds. Mutua was only 11 when he first felt the heat of the world press against his thin chest. His father, once a bricklayer full of spirit, had broken his back on a job and now lay mostly at home, bitter and quiet. His mother, Mama Jalea, worked as a washerwoman, returning each evening with raw hands and tired eyes. Mutua had 2 younger siblings who still played in the mud with bottle caps, unaware of the storm slowly brewing inside their brother. In their home, made of rusted tin, patched wood, and unwavering prayer, there was love, yes. But love is a delicate thing when hunger roars louder than hope. One scorching afternoon, while skipping school and wandering through the back alley near the bus depot, Mutua met Omari, a 14-year-old boy with a dangerous kind of smile. Omari always had money, slick hair, and a lazy arrogance. That day, Omari pulled out a half-burned cigarette and said, "Want to feel like a man, Mutua? Just one puff, and the world won't bother you no more." Mutua hesitated. He had heard his mother say cigarettes were the sticks of Satan, but his stomach was growling, his shoes were broken, and for once someone was offering him something, even if it was smoke. He took it. The first puff choked him. He coughed so hard his ribs hurt. But Omari laughed and patted his back. "You'll get used to it. Every man starts like this." And that's how it began. At first it was just once a week. Then it became daily. From cigarettes, Omari introduced him to cheap tobacco rolls soaked in spirit, and eventually to herbs wrapped in brown paper, sold quietly behind the alley bar by men with blank eyes. Mutua started skipping more school. His once alert eyes became dull, his body thinned, but his cravings grew thick like vines around his heart. He began stealing small coins from Mama Jalea's basket. At night, he'd sneak out, puffing under the baobab tree, watching the smoke swirl like ghosts above his head. School, his teachers stopped calling his name. He was just another boy, lost to the streets, they said. His notebooks remained untouched in his bag, and his uniform reeked of burnt leaves. At home, the changes were louder than silence. His mother noticed the shift. She saw the ash stains on his fingertips, the way his hands trembled when he didn't smoke, the lies, the late nights, and most of all, the darkness in his eyes that wasn't there before. She wept in corners, prayed in whispers, and begged his father to say something. But Baba Mutua had grown distant since the injury. He saw his sons fall, as another blow from life he couldn't fight. Then came the incident. One evening, Mutua came home late. Eyes bloodshot, clothes torn, and one shoe missing. His siblings were asleep. His mother sat waiting, the paraffin lamp burning low beside her. "Mutua," she said. Her voice was firm, not loud, not soft, just steady. He staggered inside, trying to avoid her eyes. "Where were you?" "With friends." Which friends? Didn't answer. She stood up slowly, came to him and touched his face. Her hands smelled of soap and onion, but they trembled like the wind before a storm. "Do you want to die, Mutua?" she whispered. He flinched. "Because that's where you're going. The smoke you're chasing is death in disguise. You think it makes you a man? It makes you a slave." Still, he said nothing, just blinked slowly. Mama Jalea stepped back. "I carried you for 9 moons, Mutua. I watched you crawl, speak, walk, and dream. But now, you're disappearing in front of me. Every time I look into your eyes, I see less of my son and more of the streets." Her words should have hurt. But Mutua was numb. Numb like the cold earth under bare feet. That night, he lit another, roll under the tree and stared at the stars. He didn't know it yet, but he had just taken the first step toward his worst fall. Mutua soon stopped coming home for days. He slept on torn sacks behind bars. His friends now included drunkards, petty, thieves, and one boy who disappeared after a police raid. Mama Jalila kept searching. She brought food to the alley. She asked bus drivers if they'd seen him. She begged the mosque and church to pray for her son. But Mutua was spiraling, and no one, not even his siblings, could understand why the boy who used to tell bedtime stories and build toy cars from wire was now a ghost with a cigarette always hanging from his lips. Then, one day, something happened. The house that once echoed with the laughter of children now stood still, like a tomb where the living walked with hearts too heavy to beat freely. Mama Jalila sat alone most nights, her feet folded under her, staring at the wooden door that used to creak open at exactly 6 p.m. when Mutua returned from school. But now, there was only silence. His younger siblings, Nduta and Kweku, had stopped asking, "Mama, when is Mutua coming back?" Because each time they did, tears would quietly form in her eyes, and she would distract them with stories or sweet potatoes, her voice shaky but brave. Baba Mutua barely spoke anymore. His injury had numbed him physically, and now Mutua's condition was chewing through what little dignity he had left. Once a proud father, he now avoided his neighbors. His shame walked ahead of him like a shadow he could never outrun. In the small community of Kibera, people had started whispering, "Did you hear about Jalia's son? I saw him near the tavern with grown men, smoking strange things. How? Can a mother lose her son to the streets when she lives just a few blocks away?" Words, cruel, careless words, flew like crows above her roof. But she never responded. She simply prayed. Each morning, he would wake up on cold concrete, coughing, dizzy, and hungry. His skin had grown dry, his eyes yellowed at the corners, and his once lively feet were now cracked and slow. But the addiction held him, like chains forged from loneliness and confusion. He tried to return home once, just once. It was a rainy evening. He had not eaten for 2 days. His lips were cracked and his bones felt like firewood ready to break. He crept back to the street he grew up on, soaked in rain and shame. When he saw the house, that fragile tin structure, with the blue curtain fluttering like a tired flag, his heart thumped. He didn't knock, he didn't speak, he simply stood outside and wept silently. Then, afraid of rejection, of shame, of his mother's possible heartbreak, he turned and walked away. He didn't see her watching from the window, tears flooding her eyes. She didn't call out. She didn't chase him. She just whispered, "My son, please don't give up." That week, everything got worse. One of his street friends, Timo, collapsed behind the butcher's shop after inhaling something too strong. He foamed at the mouth. Mutua screamed, slapped him, poured water on his face, but Timo never opened. His eyes again. Mutua was 14 by then. He ran. Ran like a wounded animal, blind and mad. He ran to the edge of the forest near the river, a place he once visited with his siblings on Sundays when life was simple. There, he collapsed under an acacia tree and cried for hours. For the first time in years, he remembered the warmth of his mother's lap, the silly stories he used to make up, and the way Nduta used to cling to his hand when crossing the road. What had he become? His hands shook violently, not because of the cold, but because his body was begging, screaming, for smoke. He had hidden one roll in his pocket. He pulled it out. His hands trembled as he lit it. He brought it to his lips. But then, he heard a voice so soft, yet so powerful, so far, yet so near. It wasn't from the trees. It wasn't from the wind. It was from inside him. "Mutua, do you want to die?" It was his mother's voice, echoing in the darkest corner of his mind. He dropped the cigarette. He crushed it with his bare foot. He sat frozen as the wind picked up and the clouds grumbled above. That night, for the first time, Mutua didn't sleep on the street. He didn't chase smoke. He just cried. And then he slept. A sleep so deep, so peaceful, that even the hunger inside him quieted down for a while. Back at home, Mama Jalea sat with a notebook. A counselor at the nearby clinic had told her to try something new. Write a letter, not to the government, not to the neighbors, but to her son. And so she wrote, "My dear Mutua, if you're still out there, still breathing, still trying to find your way back, know this. You are not your mistakes. You are my son, my light, my fight, my heart. The world may have tricked you, but I will never give up on you. Come home. Even if your hands shake, even if your body is weak, even if your mind is tired, just come home. Love always. Mama." She folded the letter and placed it under his pillow, a place she still fluffed each day, pretending he would sleep there again. And somewhere, under a tree not too far away, a broken boy named Mutua was beginning to remember who he truly was. But the fight was not over. The real war was about to begin. The days that followed were like walking through fog for Mutua. He was weak. His legs shook when he stood. His head throbbed like drums beaten at midnight festivals. Withdrawal wasn't just pain. It was a storm inside his body. No smoke, no pills, no powder, only memories, regrets, and a haunting silence that screamed louder than noise. He hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. The little bananas he stole from a roadside vendor had long been digested. His lips were dry and cracked, his tongue bitter, and worst of all, the voices were back, not from people, from his own mind. You'll never be clean. Your family doesn't want you. One puff, just one, will make this pain stop. You're already broken. He sat under the old railway bridge, clutching his knees, his eyes wild with hunger. Not for food, but for the poison that had once numbed his pain. That's when he saw them. A group of older street boys. Laughing. High. Free. Or so it seemed. They spotted him. "Mutua, where have you been, brother? Come, we got a new mix, stronger than anything we've tried." His hands shook. His legs moved on their own. He walked toward them, slow like a puppet on invisible strings. But just before he reached them, someone grabbed his shoulder. He turned, Mama Jalea. Wearing her faded green kiteng, dust on her slippers, sweat on her forehead, but fire in her eyes. The boys froze. She looked at them, not with anger, not with shame, but with something more, powerful, compassion. "He's mine," she said softly. "Mama, please go," Mutua mumbled, ashamed. "I'm not your son anymore." She walked forward and hugged him, tightly, like she would never let go. "You're still mine," she whispered. "Even if the world forgets you, I won't." The boys mocked. "Mama's boy needs a diaper." "Let him stay, Mama. He belongs with us now. He's already dead." But Mutua didn't hear them anymore. He heard her heartbeat, that ancient rhythm, that lullaby of life, that sacred drumbeat of home. And something inside him cracked open. He fell to his knees and cried. Loud, shameless, painful sobs, the kind only a broken heart can produce. She knelt with him, in the mud, under the bridge, in front of strangers, and she held him. She stayed. That night, she took him home. Baba didn't speak. He just looked, for a long time, then turned his face away and sat in silence. Nduta and Kweku peeked from behind a curtain. They didn't understand, but they knew something had changed. That night, Mama Jalea boiled strong herbal tea, washed his feet like he was a newborn, and sat beside his bed as he shook and screamed. through withdrawal. He vomited. He sweat buckets. He hit the wall with his fists. He begged for drugs. But she never left the room. She read from the Bible. She told him childhood stories. She hummed lullabies. And every time he screamed, she whispered, "You're not alone." It went on for days. But then, on the 7th morning, Mutua opened his eyes. The sun was pouring through the cracks in the wall. Birds were singing outside. His body was tired but no longer shaking. His mind was clear, still confused, but alive. He sat up. Mama was asleep beside his bed, holding a bowl of cold water and a damp towel in her lap. He looked at her, and for the first time in years, he smiled. "Mama," he whispered, "I think I'm ready." She woke up, blinked at him, and placed her hand on his cheek. "Then let's begin, my son." In the weeks that followed, Mutua began to rebuild, slowly, like a child learning to walk again. He swept the compound. He helped Baba fix the broken table. He laughed again, awkwardly at first, but it was laughter. He began attending community counseling meetings. Quietly at first, then with courage. People stared, some mocked, but others clapped, because they saw a boy who came back from the dead, a boy who fought himself and won. Letting go of the drugs was only the beginning. The real war was with life itself. Mutua woke up each day like he had been born again, but not into comfort, into grit, hardship, and hope. He still carried the scars, some on his arms, others deep in his soul. But now, those scars were his proof that he had survived. Not just to live, but to become something more. He began waking up before sunrise. Mama Jalila would be up too, boiling water on the clay stove, humming softly. The smell of lemongrass and ginger tea filled the hut. Mutua started working with Mzee Baraka, the old carpenter who lived down the dusty path, sweeping wood shavings, carrying timber, hammering crooked nails into splintered frames. Every evening his hands would ache. Blisters formed. His back hurt, but he kept going. "If I could survive drugs," he told himself, "I can survive hard work." He wasn't just building furniture anymore. He was rebuilding himself. One late afternoon, as he walked back from work, Mutua saw a group of boys hiding behind a mango stall. They were young, no more than 10 or 12. They lit a cigarette, passed it around with trembling hands, coughing and laughing like it was fun. But Mutua saw the truth in their eyes. Hollow, curious, lost. One of the boys saw him and froze. Mutua didn't shout. He walked over calmly, took the cigarette from their hands, and crushed it under his heel. The boys gasped. "Who are you to tell us what to do?" one of them barked, trying to sound brave. Mutua didn't flinch. He lifted his shirt sleeve and showed them an old burn. Mark on his arm, a wound from a drug night gone wrong. "I'm who you'll become," he said quietly. "If you don't stop now." The boys were silent. For a moment, the wind itself paused. "You think it's cool now? But this thing, it doesn't stop when you want it to. It eats you. It robs your mother of her joy. It makes your father hide his face. It steals your future before you even know what a future is. I was you once, but someone pulled me out. Let me pull you too." He took them to Mama Jalila. She didn't yell. She offered them food. That night, Mutua sat those boys down on old wooden stools and told them his story. Not the polished version. The real one. They listened. Eyes wide, mouths dry, hearts racing. And when he finished, one of them whispered, "Can you help me too?" Mutua nodded. "That's why I'm still here. From that day, Mutua became more than a survivor. He became a mentor. He started visiting schools, talking to youth groups, cleaning abandoned corners of the village where boys used to hide to sniff glue or smoke. He asked MZ Baraka to teach the boys woodwork, gave them something to do with their hands. He asked the church to lend them space once a week for a support group. He named it Ashes to Ambition. What started with just 3 boys became 15, then 30, then more. Mutua was no longer just the boy who came back from the dead. He was the light for those still crawling through the dark. Years passed. The village of Makungu no longer whispered Mutua's name in shame. Now they spoke it with pride, from the drug corners to classrooms, from street dust to carpentry dust, from broken silence to speeches that moved hearts. Mutua had become a symbol of hope. One warm Sunday morning, the district commissioner arrived in Makungu. It was the first time such an official had ever set foot in the village. There was a buzz in the air. Mutua had been nominated for the Youth Resilience Award by a teacher whose son he had mentored. Everyone gathered in the church hall, wooden benches filled with parents, children, and teenagers whose lives he had touched. Mama Jalea sat in the front row, holding her wrapper tight, tears shining in her eyes. Mutua stepped up to the stage. No fancy clothes, just a plain shirt, his hands still rough with work. But his eyes, clear, bright, alive. He took a deep breath. I once smoked my childhood away. I once buried my future in empty bottles. I once watched my mother cry herself to sleep because of me. He paused. But I came back, and I brought others with me. The hall was silent. Then came the applause. Then the tears. Then the standing ovation. Months later, with donations from NGOs and support from local artisans, Mutua launched a small rehab and skills center called Jalea House, in honor of his mother. It offered shelter, counseling, and hands-on training. Carpentry, tailoring, painting, farming. Dozens of children passed through the gates, some left with a skill, some left with just a reason to live. But all left with hope. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped behind the baobab trees, Mama Jalea sat beside her son on the wooden bench outside their home. She looked at him, now a grown man, strong, respected, busy, yet always her child. Mutua, she said softly, do you know why I never gave up on you? He shook his head slowly. She took his hand. Because the fire inside you was not meant to destroy. It was meant to light the way for others. Mutua swallowed hard. For a long time, they just sat there, the wind carrying the scent of wet earth and promise. He had come full circle, from broken to builder, from addict to advocate, from a wasted life to a life that saves others.